Today is a Friday, and for many people who typically work in an office, that means there is a good chance that some of you will be working from home today. But are the days of working from home over? In case you missed it, this week New South Wales public sector employees were directed back to the office by the New South Wales government. It has triggered a strong debate about what flexibility looks like in today's post-pandemic world, and if going back to the pre-pandemic working life is really realistic.
Billi, the debate about work from home versus work in the office is a big one. People feel very strongly. And so before we get into the emotional response to it all, can you just start quite broad by telling us what happened this week and why we're talking about it?
So this week it was announced that the New South Wales government would require every person in the public sector to return to working from the office. So essentially ending work from home for the most part. Obviously, there are always exceptions and there's always flexibility for different arrangements, especially for those with care responsibilities. But for the most part, they want people back in the office. Now, when I first saw this in the news on Tuesday morning, the reporting said that workers would need to be in the office every single day of the working week. But when the New South Wales Premier, FitzSimons, did a press conference, he actually said that the policy will be for workers to be in the office, quote, primarily and predominantly.
So not necessarily every single day.
No. So predominantly, basically majority of the days. So I think you can take it as 3 out of 5. You have to be in the office. Like I said, there will always be exceptions, but that will be the standard rule. Now, public sector is a term that you might hear thrown around a lot, but I thought it might be worth actually explaining who they are.
Yeah, so, I think this is helpful.
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know, it just means that anyone who is employed by the New South Wales government. So that includes staff in government departments. So think of something like the Department of Education or the Department of Health. All the people who work for those departments, they now need to be working in the office. The public sector does also include things like public hospitals and public schools, so teachers, nurses. Of course, those workers can't work from home, so this doesn't affect them. It's just affecting those people who can work in an office for them to go back. Min said in his press conference that about 85% of public servants don't work from home. So this new policy is affecting about 15% of the workforce.
But when we talk about, I mean, that sounds like a small percentage, but I think the reason that that's being spoken about so much is because the New South Wales public sector employs 400,000 people. So even 15% of that, we're talking about a lot of people here who have had a bit of a big change when it comes to their working arrangements.
Yeah, they're a huge employer in New South Wales.
Yeah. Okay. And so what was FitzSimons' reasoning behind this decision? How did he come out and explain this call?
He really emphasised the word teamwork that kept coming up in the press conference. And he said that all of the research available shows that the best way to foster teamwork is by having people in the same location, and that being the office. And he actually said that this decision was made in large part because of young people.
I'm not sure that would be a popular part of the announcement.
Maybe it's one of those things where you don't know what's best for you,
yeah,
I
exactly.
think is his point. But he said that the public service hires a lot of university graduates, and that for your first job out of uni to be one where everyone is working from home, that can make it difficult. And he said that when the grads don't have access or don't have immediate access to people that have decades of experience who they can learn from, then it becomes hard to build a really productive team where young people are learning from the experts in the room around them. I mean, I think we all know that messaging someone over Slack isn't the same as just turning to the person next to you and asking
it's obviously a very nuanced topic, but it is something that I can see even in our workplace, that we have so many young people who choose to come in on a daily basis because you can create those relationships both with people your own age, but then also looking upwards at people you can learn from.
Yeah, our office is maybe an anomaly. We're
yes,
like
I do believe that's the case. Are we weird? Anyway, so that's the social elements and the learning elements. What else did FitzSimons say?
So another key reason is the economy, and he really emphasised this. So over recent months, there have been a few different reports come out about how the Sydney CBD, and I would say that this is consistent across CBDs across the country, not just in New South Wales.
Yeah, we've definitely heard this about Melbourne a lot.
Yeah, so what they're saying is that they have been very quiet compared to pre-pandemic levels. There aren't the workers there. It's not like this bustling city that it was. And that is having a hit on the different small businesses in the CBDs. So let's take Fridays for an example. As we know, Fridays have traditionally, they've always been this key time for after work drinks with colleagues or with friends. But now Fridays are a really popular time for many people to work from home.
Have that long weekend vibe.
Yes. And so that's meant that workplaces are a lot quieter on Fridays, and that just has this flow-on effect. So that then means that people aren't going to drinks after work, and that causes bars and pubs to take a significant hit. Some businesses in Sydney have said that they have lost up to 25% of profit on Fridays when compared to pre-pandemic levels. So that's a significant amount of profit that they're losing out on. And that has meant that there has been this push from business owners and business groups for the government to do something about this and to somehow incentivize and encourage people to get back into the office to help the economy. And so this decision that the New South Wales Premier has made this week has been praised by business groups. So it hasn't been that popular with workers, but it has been popular with business groups. Also, another industry that has taken a hit from work from home policies is commercial property developers. I mean, Zara, even in our office, we have had a vacant office below us for maybe
very long time.
2 years now.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned that something is very wrong with it.
Yeah, they have not been able to find renters. And so that is another industry group that has really praised this decision. There is, however, a slight problem, and that's that there isn't actually enough space right now that is being rented by the New South Wales government for the public sector for all of these workers to suddenly come back into the office.
Right. That strikes me as something that perhaps should have been considered before making an announcement like this. Was that addressed?
Yeah, well, I think the point is that this decision isn't effective immediately. There will be about a 6-month rollout period for the New South Wales government to find new office spaces so that there is enough capacity to bring all of these people back. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns said that they are looking at different office spaces in Sydney CBD and Parramatta. And he said that, like I just said, there is a lot of commercial office space available. It's just about them renting
so they're moving in downstairs. There you go.
We'll see them there.
Okay. And so I feel like we spent quite a bit of time talking about what the business perspective is, what Chris Minns' perspective is. That, I would argue, is quite distinct from the experience of your average worker who perhaps might not take to this announcement too well. What has the response been?
So many opinions, as you would imagine.
Always the case.
So, yeah, let's look at the workers. If our comment section on the Daily Aus is anything to go by, I would say it hasn't been the most popular. Our top comment on the Daily Aus was one that said, quote, "Work is an activity, not a place." I also spoke to someone who works in the public service who got this memo that they needed to go back to the office. And I thought their perspective was quite interesting because they moved to regional New South Wales to a more affordable place during the pandemic with the arrangement with their work, again, which is in the public sector, to be able to work from home. They haven't needed to go into the office for something like more than once every 3 months.
Wow.
So that's a big change going from that to now needing to be in the office 3 days a week. And it also is more expensive. You know, if you account for all of those travel hours, that is more expensive. And I think in a cost of living crisis, that's another thing that is really being raised by a lot of workers. We also polled our audience, and about 90% said that office policies should be hybrid, so allowing for both work from home and in office, which is worth pointing out is similar to what the New South Wales government is suggesting. Only 6% of respondents said that office policies should be a mandate to work in the office full-time. We also asked them if they would reconsider working for a company if that company required you to always be in the office, and about 60% said that they would. So it will be interesting to see if the public sector will be able to continue to attract and retain staff with this new policy.
Yeah, I mean, as we explain more of it, I do think that there was a bit of clickbait around at the beginning, and hearing you explain that, you know, Chris Minns isn't demanding that 5 days a week you're back in the office from tomorrow, that it is this phased in procedure and that there is still this hybrid nature to it. But I imagine that if, like you said, of that person you were speaking to, if you've had an agreement and you've moved out to the regions, this would be a huge blow. And we know, of course, for working parents, working from home has been a lifesaver for them.
We're also nearly 5 years since the pandemic started and nearly 5 years into when working from home became much more of a regular thing for so many people. And so I think the drastic change is what really was quite jarring for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that for workers, for them, it's been working just fine.
Yeah.
And so if you're now turning around and saying that thing that's been working just fine for the last 4 or 5 years is no longer working just fine, I imagine there would be some questions. Billi, you flagged earlier that business groups are generally happy with this announcement, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that they are really happy with this decision. Business Sydney is one group who came out and praised the Premier for his leadership. They said that they have, quote, consistently called for the government to take the lead in ending work from home arrangements and that it will be a huge encouragement for the private sector in its efforts to bring their people back to the workplace. So what they're saying there is that the New South Wales government has taken the lead and that hopefully private companies, for example, the Daily Aus, we're a private company, will now follow that lead for making a mandate for people to work in the office.
Based on our comment section, I'm not sure we will be following suit, but it will be interesting to see whether this does become a trend. I know that we've seen, CBA and some other banks try to lead on this, but it didn't necessarily create this follow-on effect that perhaps some of the business groups were looking for.
Yeah. And one other group that was happy was Property Council of Australia. They also said that, quote, more workers means more life, more investment and more business for our cities.
And obviously their vested interest is in property. So that would make sense on that behalf too. Now, Billi, if people haven't been able to work from home today and they are on their commute to work listening to this podcast, what do you think they should listen to next? What was your favourite TDA podcast from this week?
Wow, great segue.
Thank you.
I'm definitely biased, but on Tuesday I did an interview with an economist about what was going on with the falling stock markets this week. I was so confused and I needed an expert to explain it to me. I wanted to understand if you are not someone who invests in shares and if you are someone who also doesn't own a property, how does falling stock markets actually affect you? And is it something that you need to worry about? And he explained it to me so well. And I would highly recommend that. What about you, Zara? What was your favourite episode this week?
I think my favourite episode, which seems like a weird word to describe it, but was the episode we did on the men on trial for 9/11. This is such a crazy story to me, and there are so many twists and turns, and I think so many of us feel so removed from what happened in 2001 because it was so long ago. But, the fact that there are these lasting implications in the legal system, I just found it absolutely fascinating.
We will put a link to those episodes in today's show notes if you would like to go and have a listen. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Daily Aus. Have a good Friday if you're in the office or if you're working from home. And we will see you again on Monday.